Now, let's talk coronavirus, especially in Gauteng. It's the Gauteng Coronavirus Command Council will this week give us an update on the fourth wave projection. Yes, we are talking about a fourth wave already. Didn't we just finish the third wave? Well, the province has recorded over 19,000 COVID-19 related cases in total, but active cases are now below 6,000. So is that good news? Are we being too risque on level 2? Well, let's speak about the projections. Joined by Gauteng Premier's Advisory Committee member on COVID-19, spoken to him many times over Zoom, but Bruce Mellado, good to have you with us, Mr. Mellado. Good to have you on the show as well, in person. So let's attend to that first question first. Level 2, too soon? Are we going to kick ourselves in a few weeks' time when we get this wrong?
Thanks for having me, first of all, and it's great to be actually here in the studio. We believe that going to level 2 was actually appropriate and needed. I mean, one has to take into account the fact that the third wave was somewhat different compared to other waves in that the third wave progressed very differently in different regions of the country and provinces of the country, whereas Gauteng was actually going down fairly well, and according to modeling, all the neighboring provinces such as KZN hadn't peaked. So that was a major source of concern. So as a result of that, the Central Command Council had to basically keep level 3 for quite some time. So the fact that now all the provinces in South Africa seem to be being on the downward trajectory basically was a trigger that led level 3 to be released and some of the restrictions to be released into level 2.
The reason for my question is that, it seems as the numbers come down, we're moving into a lower lockdown level, but we're doing this, aren't we, knowing there's a fourth wave on the way? Some would argue that by keeping us at level 3 lockdown, it would mitigate, if you will, the expected fourth wave.
Right. That's a good question, and one has to really look into the dynamics of how the pandemic works and how community transmission is working. So you are very right in saying, well, we are expecting a fourth wave. There's no question about that. And why do we release the numbers? But first of all, you have to really release lockdown measures because there is economic impact on lockdown measures. You need to release that. But at the same time, you have to understand that once you are low enough, keeping level 3 is not going to make a huge difference. Because in the end of the day, the fourth wave is going to be triggered by super spreader events. So one example of how the dynamic works is that the province has been steadily going down as per the predictions of the model, whereas mobility has increased. So this means that we're basically on the solid downward trajectory in terms of community transmission. So it is appropriate to actually go to down to level 2.
And how bad are the predictions for the this fourth wave that we're expecting?
That's a very good question. And in fact, it turns out that modeling the fourth wave has happened to be more complicated than modeling the third, because you have more variables here to take into account, more uncertainties to deal with. And in addition, you have now the progression of the vaccination campaign, which has a very strong impact on fatal outcomes, hospitalizations, and mortality. That being said, when you put all these variables together, and our team has basically been working very hard in collating all the information that experts give to us into the mathematical model that has been proven to work well in other waves, it appears that the fourth wave is unlikely to be higher than the third. In fact, it's expected to be significantly smaller than the third wave.
Something that I saw on social media when we were talking about you and I having a conversation about this, are we to assume that it's going to be the Delta variant in the fourth wave, or is it as we move into different waves, we get new variants, or do we simply not know that?
That's a very good question. The problem is that we can't predict how mutations are going to take place in the future. We basically learned during the third wave, remember Gauteng started off the wave with one variant, and then all of a sudden the Delta took over, changed the dynamics of the wave rather rapidly. Now, that's always an uncertainty that you have to bear in mind, and what we do in order to accommodate to that problem, to the fact that this is a very dynamic problem, we basically have a corresponding mathematical apparatus that is adjustable and dynamic, that can be adjusted on a very short time scale. So that's exactly what we do.
Mr. Mellado, help me understand. I don't want to get into the politics of the IEC. That decision has been made by the Concord. How concerned is the Gauteng Coronavirus Command Council about voting day, the physical arrival of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, millions, hopefully, to vote? But how concerned are you about the super spreader?
Indeed, as a committee, we don't look at the politics and the political significance of any event whatsoever. We look at it from the point of view of, does this qualify as a super spreader event? And obviously, that's a major concern that we have. When you have gatherings and you have, so to say, unnecessary relaxation of social distancing measures, you're basically looking into the possibility of a trigger. And that's why we've basically been warning all the stakeholders involved about the fact that we have to adhere in this kind of situations more than ever to social distancing measure. Non-pharmaceutical interventions remain very important, even with the presence of the rollout of the vaccine.
Is it practical, though? I mean, I've covered many elections, stood in the queues, as a voter, and then also, as all of our colleagues have had eNCA covering these events. I just can't see it in my mind's eye how we're not going to have a super spreader event. Maybe would you have considered, not you, but should there have been a consideration about doing elections over 3 days, for example? I mean, there must have been another way of doing this, because I can almost guarantee, and you may or may not agree with me, you're going to be back here towards the end of maybe November talking about the elections having been a super spreader event. It's like we know it's coming, but we're still barreling through.
You're certainly making a very good point. From the modeling standpoint, that is a risk. And we do know that there is basically different levels of adherence to social distancing, we know. And there's also certain relaxation of adherence to social distancing that we have seen over the time. When we actually look at the social media and analyze the social media, the level of awareness has certainly dropped. Yeah, the risk is there, and we are outspoken about it, and we are always open about the risks that this sort of activities entail.
Happy with the vaccination rollout in Gauteng? Is it making a difference? Because I thought when we got to the 18 to 35-year-olds, we would call them respectfully the TikTok generation. I thought we were going to see queues around the corner once it opened up, but it doesn't seem to have been the case. Are you happy with the rollout?
Okay, that's the problem of vaccination hesitance is a very complex one. And we are realizing now how complex it is. Because sometimes people say, yes, I'm going to get vaccinated, but you find all kinds of excuses not to go and get vaccinated. You will eventually get vaccinated. Now, overall, the province has crossed already 4 million vaccinations, which is a major milestone. We've already vaccinated about 25% of the population, but more importantly, we've crossed the 50% mark for people over 60, and that's extremely important when it comes to the fourth wave and the reduction of mortality and hospitalization.
Well, I appreciate your time in coming in to speak to us. So good to have you in person as well, even though we continue to social distance. Normally over Zoom joining us this morning, Bruce Mellado, Gauteng Premier's advisory committee member, talking about what we're expecting as far as the fourth wave. We know it's coming. How bad is it going to be? The experts are watching it. But more importantly, and I feel Bruce and I are going to have this conversation again end of November, what are the elections going to look like on the 1st of November? How are we going to run an election during COVID-19?